Let's take a look at the next video in the series of creating slideshows with Adobe Animate. This will be a pretty short one, and we're going to talk about a very simple slideshow, and then you'll be ready for the last video where you actually build the Martian kiosk or the Martian slideshow and interaction. So here we have a simple slideshow. We see these all over the web. We have an image, carousel, here with a next button, back button, and a stop button if we have the slideshow run automatically using a timer. We're not going to focus on that right now, the automated slideshow, because for simplicity's sake, we just want to deal with the logic of creating the slideshow. And so there are 5 photos here, and if I reload, this is the first photo, second photo, third photo, fourth, fifth, and then we're back to slide number 1. Now, when we think about the logic of the slideshow, just think about this in terms of scripting and the logic is that we start with the first slide, and then when a person clicks this next button here, so next button on click, then it's calling a function that's saying, hey, go to the next slide. And if we click again, go to the next slide, go to the next slide, or in Animate, go to the next frame. And then when we get to that last image or the last frame, we need to have some kind of condition that basically says, okay, if we're at the last frame and a person clicks the next button, then go to the first frame, go back to the first frame in the movie, which is what it's done here. And likewise, if someone goes through the slideshow and they click back, the back button, and they get to the first frame in the slideshow, then we need a conditional statement or logic that says, if a person clicks the back button and we're on the first slide, then go to slide 5 or the last slide. And so we'll take a look at what it takes to do that in Animate. Now I'm going to save some time, and instead of going through all the construction of this slideshow, I'm going to upload the project and you can look at it and examine it. But I just want to talk about how I created it. So I'm giving you a file with all the images and the buttons, etc., in case you want to recreate it on your own. And each of these layers corresponds to the objects. Like here's the back button. I labeled that stop by mistake here. I guess it's an error. So this should actually be back. And so let me change that. And this button is the stop. And so these are the flowers, and then this is the layer where I store the actions, and that's out of habit from my old Flash days of learning it. And so here you can see that each of the flowers are on the flowers layer. And when you look at that layer, I'm going to zoom in here, you'll notice that each layer, each frame is named. So that's called a frame label. So how do we add a frame label? Well, once we create the keyframe with the objects on that frame, we can go to properties. And in properties, we're going to get information about the object. And in order to do that, we have to select the image, and it will select that keyframe. Properties collapse on me again. Go to frame, and then here, this is the name of the flower, which is the frame label. So under label, we can see the name, and we can set a type if we wanted to. Like actually, we could add a comment or a name or an anchor within the slideshow. This is just the name, a named label. And that label can be part of or become part of the logic of the scripting. And so when we go to each of these objects, we can see that the frame each has a frame label. We can also see them here. So labeling them is important because we can use the named frames and in our logic, in our structure. So let's take a look at the logic. It'll be very similar to what you saw in the first video, and if you understand JavaScript, you're going to just pick up this very quickly.